Welcome to GTC's Teaching Tidbits Blackboard Ultra. In this limited series, each episode, we explore a technique, tip, practice, or idea to expand your knowledge of and your comfort with using Blackboard Ultra. In this episode, we have another wonderful member of our amazing faculty here at GTC who has also been teaching with Blackboard Ultra for a while, Lauren Davis from Psychology. Welcome, Lauren.
Thank you so much for having me, Rachel.
Well, I'm glad to have you here, and I know we're appreciative of faculty who have been working with Ultra to really share some of what they have learned along the way. So in this episode, Lauren is going to continue our exploration of student engagement tools in Blackboard Ultra. So Lauren, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce us to a couple more tools for student engagement.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Rachel. Okay, so we are going to dive first into discussion boards. So discussion boards is something that really a lot of faculty use. For a bunch of different reasons. And there's some really awesome things and features in our discussion boards. The one new thing now in Ultra is that our little kind of area is at the top. So we click on discussions. This is just in a master course in my human relations course. So you'll see that I have kind of a student introduction. We have our discussion boards. I always put with a rubric just to remind students that there is going to be a graded rubric, and we'll touch on that a little bit too. So for example, in our student introductions, since this is a master course, there is no participants, but you can just see how it's laid out, how everything works. And then in the settings, I thought it was also really good to put in and show you guys that you can grade your discussion. If you don't click on this, it will not be graded, and it'll show the students here. Oops, sorry, let me save it real quick. But if I click on it for it not to be graded, it'll say that the discussion isn't graded. So students will know that it's not graded. But for our purposes, we do want it to be graded. So we'll have to put in a time, and I'll just put for tomorrow. And then if you scroll down, you can add in your rubric. So I already have rubrics that are in here, but we'll just click add, and then you will be good to go. Keep having to move my little people, and click save, and then it'll come up with a rubric. But some other cool features is that if we come down, you'll see some responses. These are just me playing around in here, but I'll show you some examples too. So your initial response will show up like this, but when there's multiple students, they will show up one after the other. Of course, there's going to be more context to them, so there'll be more spaces in between. But for replies, you just click down, and that's where your replies go. And then you'll be able to reply to the reply and then have other replies as well. It is really cool because everything's right here. So students don't have to go in one discussion board out to the other, in and out. So it's really awesome, and it's more able for students to really connect with one another. And I really, really like that. So I'm also going to show you, let me share to a different screen, some screenshots with some blurred names out for our students. So here, I will show you, you can see where my test replies were over here, but this is what it looks like with students who were enrolled in a course. I blur their names for privacy, of course, but you can see that they have replies. When it pops up new, you'll see that it'll say new next to it. And that just means that you have not seen it. It doesn't mean that the student hasn't seen it. It's just for the instructor's point of view. And you'll be able to click on the replies, and again, they will drop down, and you'll be able to see that. And then the other thing I wanted to show you guys too, which was really cool, is that once you're in this kind of preview area as an instructor and in the instructor view, you can click. So I have clicked on, which is what highlighted purple, and then it'll just show my responses. But say I wanted to see I went in as a preview user, but say I want to click on myself, since I replied to all my students, it would come up with every single student's discussion with all of my replies. But let's say I just wanted to see Johnny's replies. I would click on Johnny and all his replies and his initial discussion board would come up, which is a really, really great feature. So now kind of going back to the grading portion of the discussion boards. So here we have our grading rubric. You can see that we have our critical thinking levels, variations, sentence complexity here, and then our rubrics here. You could just click on here. You can add in your feedback. The cool thing about the rubrics, again, I'm sure there will be an episode coming shortly about rubrics that will kind of go into the complexity of point systems, percentages, and things like that. So the last little quirk that I want to show you guys for discussion boards is if you guys are in an assignment. For example, this is my midterm in a class that is already working on. You can see my submissions are going here. You have this little conversation bubble here. So if you click on this, it'll actually open up a response where you can ask a question about this particular assignment. Now, if you respond, it obviously has me as the professor, but if students respond to the questions, it's all about the midterm and it's in one concise spot. So that's a really good option. And then you'll see and you'll get notifications back on here. You'll see if I were to go out of this and come back in, it'll show up purple that somebody has answered in this conversation. So I thought that was a really good little tidbit. Now, the next portion is about journals. So journals is a great way to connect with students one-on-one. The discussion boards are something that you are working with all of your students, but journals are a little bit more personal, and they get very personal in the journals as well. So what I want to show you is how our journals work. There is no button directly for a journal at the top. So you will either have to go into the journal itself or just go into your gradebook to get to your journal. So this is kind of the quickest way I normally get to it, is I'll click on it through the gradebook. So click on our journal here, and this is just participation, show you that nobody's in here, but this is where you would go to grade. Now, if I were to preview as a student, I will show you how to get to the journals. So if I went into the journal, I would scroll down and click on it. And this is what my assignment would look like. So I have my objectives, my assignments, and then at the bottom, this is where the student will actually type their complete entry to you. So we'll just write in, this is a test. And then you will write their entire journal entry here. They can also upload a Word document if they choose to, and that's fine too. However, really comfortability works for you and for your students. So you'll post on here. And then what I like to do is I like to give them a comment on their journal entry and kind of just engage with them on their journal. And just say, this was a great journal and X, Y, and Z, and go on with the topic that they have chosen for their specific journal. They will see that a comment will pop up. So once the journal is submitted, we kind of get into the grading portion of the journal. So you'll see I have one entry here. Once you do that, that entry will pop up and we're in my test here. So you'll see at the bottom, it'll pop up new because I have not read it yet. It shows that this is something that needs to be read. So this is where I can attach my documents in my entry. The one thing that I personally like to do with journals with our rubric is use the point system, because rubrics are a little bit more intricate than the discussion boards. They have a lot of different pieces and a lot of different moving pieces and a lot of applying their work. So I like to do the point system. So for example, if I were to click on excellent for a content reflection, I get to choose between 8 or 10 points in that excellent area. So then I'll just put in a 10, and then that will be the grade. So then I use, again, the rubrics again are up to your discretion, analysis, personal growth, relevance, grammar, and mechanics. But I think the rubrics are really great. The journals are a really great option for some individuals, depending on the class, I use them in my human relations class because these are things that are going to be applied to the real world. So anything that they can use and relate it back to themselves and what they're doing on their daily life, I think is really excellent. Now, the one thing that I didn't touch on was creating them. So I'll do a quick little create. In our journal, I'll go back to content just to show you guys real quick how to create. You can create them in the modules, outside of the modules, but I will show you. So we click on here, we'll click create. Our journals will be in our participation and engagement section here at the bottom, journals and discussion. So this is where you'll create both of them. So if we click on journal, it's pretty self-explanatory, just new journal. You will put the content or your requirements in here. And then you can add in your attachments, whatever it is that you need. Again, the important part is making sure that if it is created, if it's not, to click the settings on those. And again, that's where you'll be able to add in your rubric, add in your points, and click save. Always click save or else it will not save, and then make it visible to your students. I'm not going to make it visible to my students because they would probably all freak out at the moment. The other thing is to add in the discussion board. So you'll see it pop up as a journal, would be the same exact way, just discussions. Here again, new discussion. At the bottom, discussion requirements. Again, you can require some discussion boards, you don't have to. In one of my classes, we do a flip grid and we don't require the discussions to be graded. So we'll just put it in there, and believe it or not, they will do the introduction and introduce themselves, even though they're already introducing themselves into Flipgrid too. But making sure that if you want it to be graded, to make sure that you click grade discussion. You can also click post first, which would mean that they have to post the assignment first in order to see everybody else's responses. So you click on that. I do like to do that to make sure that they are putting in their own thoughts and their own research into their way, and then your points, and then of course your grading rubrics as well. And click save. And then of course, make sure it is visible to your students as well. So I think that is it on discussions and journals.
Well, thank you so much, Lauren, for sharing again about 2 other really great tools integrated into Blackboard for student engagement. We had them in original, but thank you for walking us through what they look like and how they work, especially in Ultra, as we make this transition. I think that's going to be really helpful to everyone as they continue to try to integrate the same things. It's just a slightly different format, just looks a little fresher and newer, but all the tools are still there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you coming on and sharing your knowledge. And I know that for those who are watching the episode, Lauren definitely invites you to continue the conversation, ask questions about the experience that she's had. Please feel free to email her. Her email is here on the screen, lauren.davis@gvltec.edu. And of course, the CISC Curriculum and Instructional Support Center is also here for you. So please feel free to email their department email at cisc@my.gvltec.edu. And any member of the CIS team will be happy to help you as well as you transition to Blackboard Ultra. Well, that's our teaching tidbit for this episode of Blackboard Ultra, and we'll see you next time.